Hi, Frankie. In your last video, you had your friend David on. And for my first guest, I picked Chris because he lives here. So it was easy to get him to film.
Yeah. I'm being forced to do this against my will.
No, he's not. So you know Chris already. He's not a new friend. He's an old pal.
Old pal.
But yeah, in your video, you asked David about like kind of what he does for work, and he talked about working in Congress and things like that. So I figured I'd ask Chris about what he wants to do for work and how he got into studying what he is studying and how he's going to school.
Yeah, so
what are you studying?
so I'm a social science education major, which is essentially I'm in school to be either a econ teacher, a history teacher, a geography teacher, a psychology teacher. I can also teach psychology with my degree. Or what are the other social sciences? I feel like I should know this more than anyone. History, geography, econ, gov, civics. Yeah, so all those. I can do all of those with my degree and teach them. So I take a wide variety of content classes coupled with education classes, which gives me the content and the pedagogical content knowledge, which is a fancy word for I know how to teach.
And tell them about like how your program is structured in that, like what degrees you're getting.
So yeah, my program is a combined bachelor's, master's. Well, it like used to be combined, but now it's like separate, but like it's one program. So like I'll get my bachelor's next spring, and then the spring after that, I'll get my master's, which is pretty cool because I'll hopefully be able to get a little bit of a pay raise with that master's and probably have a little more job opportunity with that. So, yeah.
So, what made you want to do teaching?
So I've worked a number of jobs with kids, high school, middle school, elementary. Working with kids is fun. Always enjoyed it. It's just like cool interacting with them. They're hilarious, which I've always found cool. And I struggled a lot with what I wanted to do in my life. Maria knows I've been through like probably 5 different majors total. This one has stuck. And one day it just kind of dawned on me that I think being a teacher would be good for me. And at first I wanted to go into like science teaching because I really enjoy science too, specifically biology, but science is super hard. And not saying that like history and stuff isn't super hard. I'm just saying that it's a lot less hard than biology. So I've always wanted to, I've always worked with kids, and I realized that I wanted to teach. So one night in a panic, after getting a bad grade on a math test at 3 a.m, as I often panic at, I decided to look around at FSU's programs because we'd already moved to Tallahassee at this point. And I looked for FSU's teaching programs because I was like, I just want to learn how to teach. I don't care what subject it is. And I stumbled upon the social science education program, saw that it was combined bachelor's, master's. Thought it would be kind of cool because, like looking back on high school, all my favorite teachers and all my favorite classes were actually my history and like gov class. So like it seemed to fit very well with me teaching those classes. So I was like, science is cool, but I also really like these classes. I also think the 2016 election played a big part in that because, you just got to be educated. And I just feel like before that election, social sciences weren't important. I mean, they always have been, but now more than ever, like the social sciences should be like the premier subject taught in schools.
So is that like basically the whole reason you chose social science?
Well, yeah, so like it was like at first like I wanted to teach science, but like now that I'm in my program and like we do a lot of like thinking about like why are you in this program? Like what made you decide to do this? One of the big things is like I'm stealing this from my professor actually. I want to make sure no matter what the political views are of my students, I just want to make sure they're not assholes. So I want I want them to be educated, civically responsible. I want them to civically participate, but I want them also to like understand the intricacies of democracy, pluralism, and all of that jazz that goes into our great nation, our democracy and whatnot. So we don't have people who are like, no, we're going to build a wall, and if it isn't built, then I blah, 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 blah. And then, like, on the other side, people not willing to compromise, too. It's just easier to pick at the right.
True. And what are some of you like the? I mean, you kind of talked about why you like working with kids, but are there any other reasons, or like why a certain age range?
I mean, young kids are a pain. Honestly. So like, I'm hoping to work with like 8th grade or above because like young kids you can't reason with as well. I think their problems. Not that they don't have problems, but like I don't want to deal with a kid being mad because someone skipped them in line. Like I would rather a kid like call me out and be like, "Hey, I disagree with like what you taught today. Like my political philosophy is X, Y, or Z." Whereas like I don't know, I feel like a 5th grader would be like, "I'm mad because Ricky didn't play dodgeball fair." I'm sure I'll get kids that are just like that, but in a high school range. But I don't know. The older kids are just easier.
Yeah.
But harder in their own way. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's really cool because, like, I have no desire to work with kids whatsoever.
Yeah, but you work with old people, which, like, I have no desire to interact with because old people working at Starbucks are the bane of my existence.
Yeah, well, the ones I work with are a little less functioning. They're not headed to Starbucks usually. But, I mean, some are. It depends.
True. Fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, I just think it's really awesome because I did like a grief group with kids and like I kind of liked it, but like I think you just have to have a gift to be able to talk to kids well and like on their level and be patient, and then on top of that, like teaching them things. And I feel like that's something that not everybody has. So
I mean,
it's really cool.
Yeah, some of it is just like, you know, I'm a social person, a bit of a social butterfly, and I think that interacts with kids well. But I think another part of that is just I've been trained through like various jobs how to interact with like not only kids but like people and like adults, and like once you learn how to talk to kids, like talking to adults is easy and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah. And like what led you into talk about, I think Frankie knows where you like the few jobs that you've had, but like I guess say what they are, and then like what led you to be interested in those in the first place?
So my first job with kids was at the YMCA. I worked there over the summer. I think I was a junior in high school, and I just thought it would be fun. Seemed like a good job to have over the summer. The hours were pretty good. Still allowed me to enjoy my summer. And I don't know. I just was like, I've worked with kids in some capacity before because like volunteering at church and whatnot. So I just figured, why not give this a try? And you know, there they do the whole YMCA training and stuff, and through that I got better at interacting with kids. So then from there I went to Dogtown, which had nothing to do with kids. That had dogs, which are kind of the same when you think about it, especially when they don't listen. But then I went to the church and I actually worked there for 2 years. I just kind of decided to work there mostly because I wanted to get away from Dogtown. That job was starting to stress me out, and just like it was so much work. So the church seemed like a good out, and I ended up really liking that job. It was super fun. Got to interact with a lot of people.
Kenobi was
trying to get up. Just gotta give him the hand. But yeah, I got to interact with kids. Got better at like making better relationships with the kids and stuff like that, because that's something that's really important as a teacher, is like knowing your students. And like I really had to know the kids in the program then. And then I went on to Lindenwood Bell, which was a lot more instruction based. And the first like 2 months the first like month I did it, I thought I was awful at it. And then my boss like sat down with me and was like, "Wow, you're doing great." And I was like, "Thank God," because it was just I was so stressed out about that. But the instruction, like once you get it down, it's great. But I mean, the biggest part about working with kids is just like knowing how to interact with them, because like if you can interact with them, they're going to be a lot more susceptible to your instruction because there's like a mutual respect type thing going on.
Yeah. And I feel like that's where I like lack in it in other people. And like you said, like you've been trained in it, but
yeah,
I think you do a really good job at it. And like you said, that makes the kids able to grasp what you're trying to teach them better.
Yeah, totally.
So then before you were mentioning some of your favorite teachers, did you have Mr. Ray in high school?
Oh, I totally had Mr. Ray.
Yeah. Frankie had liked Mr. Ray
Yeah,
a lot
Mr.
too.
Ray, like, it's funny, we'll talk about assignments and stuff in our like content, or not our content core, like in our education classes, like about like, do you remember any assignments from high school that allowed like civic participation or like promoted it or like had you think from a different perspective? And like half the assignments that I come up with are from Ray's class. The other half are from Mr. V's class, who was like my middle school geography teacher. One of the reasons I want to teach geography, because his class was super cool and you got to learn about different cultures. And he also like opened my mind up to like more progressive ideals, which was something like growing up in JCP and having very conservative parents, something I wouldn't have been exposed to. And I think it made my life better, made me a better person too.
Because you had Mr. Ray, and then I know you did a lot with him for, what is it? I can't think of the thing where you like represent Model UN.
Yeah, Model UN.
I was like, what is where you represent countries? Yeah.
Apparently, the class I'm taking next semester is like all based around Model UN.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
And then talk a little bit more about like, I know you've said some of like your experience at Creekside has like driven you to want to teach and like reach out more to kids, like how you felt in high school. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so in high school I was an awful student. I did the bare minimum. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so college wasn't a huge motivator for me. I had no ties to any of the Florida colleges. Like, I wasn't like you guys where like UF or die, even though you went to USF. But like my family, super casual about college stuff. It's probably because we came from the north. My dad went to college, my mom didn't, so I didn't have much motivation there. And on top of that, I just felt like a lot of education for me was a waste of time. Looking back on it, totally wasn't. But I think a lot of that attitude comes from like the teachers who taught me, and there was
like why did you feel like it was a waste of time?
So like the classes that I didn't feel like it was a waste of time and were always the teachers that cared about me. They were always the teachers that like made me put forth effort. You know, your Miss C's, your Mr. Ray's, Dresbach's, your Mr. Jones's, you know, all those teachers really like positively affected me and like pushed me to work harder and like knew that I wasn't a stupid idiot. And just knew that I was lazy and knew I needed someone like pushing me in the back. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of kids who get stressed out from like all the other kids who are like, I need to get into college. I need to get this GPA. Yeah. And that just didn't jive with me. I was just like, I like don't care about my GPA. I don't care about this. I don't care about that. But I wish someone would have been there being like, hey, that's okay. But like, you should totally learn this stuff and try, because a lot of this stuff is useful in life. And like, I did, you know, in the classes where the teachers did act like that, those are the classes that I remember the most from. And probably the most I gained the most like content knowledge from. So I just want to be there for kids, to be like a nice like middle ground in such like a hostile era where people like are forced to go to college, forced to do this, forced to do that. Like, I want to be like, hey, like I had this untraditional like way where I became a teacher where like I didn't know what I wanted to do. I took essentially a year off school after high school. I had horrible grades in high school. I had horrible grades up until like 2 years ago in college. So like failure is okay, and like the grading scale isn't your measurement of your worth, and like I just want kids to know that.
Yeah, I feel like it's like you said, almost like that middle ground of like pushing just like learning, because like like to find what you're passionate about, or just like learning to have knowledge, like not to push. Because I think there's a lot of now like pushing like, you know, like vocational and stuff like that, which is also great.
Yeah.
But I think there's a middle ground of like, okay, even if you want to do vocational or you don't really know what you want to do and you might take a year off, like still being like, but here's why like English is interesting, or like history and stuff like that. And like, yeah, I guess just engaging without it being like that push of like you're either already strongly motivated or you're like feeling a lot of pressure because of like trying to get into colleges and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like one of the big things that like I want to change, or at least like create a culture of this, at least in my classroom culture is like a big thing, is like essentially being like that school isn't like a means to get into college. School isn't a means for a job. School is its own thing, and you're there to learn. Like, it's not this thing that you use for other stuff. Like, I want kids to understand that like you're in school because you're learning. Like, there's no other, you know, aspect of it besides you're here to learn, and I want the kids to learn. But I want them to enjoy learning, and I want them to like really engage in the learning, because I feel like when you just make it about learning and not about you're learning this because in college you're going to do X, Y, and Z, like obviously that changes their attitudes.
Yeah, and I mean I think that has been the culture, and it's also like the whole culture of like learning for the test and stuff, because I mean I think it definitely is viewed as like a means to an end. Like I mean, I remember some stuff I learned in high school, obviously, but I'm like, not that much.
Yeah.
Like, and I think even like, it's, yeah, like you're saying, like the whole education system, because just pushed Kenobi down.
Whoops.
Because I feel like even like at UF, like I knew I had to go to grad school, so I was just like, I have to. I mean, I obviously learned a lot there, but yeah, it's just that kind of push.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. And, like, that's just a drive that I never had. And, like, I know there's kids out there that are like me that just are apathetic and don't care. And I just want them to know, like, hey, like, it's okay. But, like, you got to learn this stuff. It's important. But not for all the reasons, like, you think it's important type thing. Like, life skills, essentially.
Do you have any, like, thoughts about wanting to teach special populations? Like, as far as, like, would you ever do like Title I schools, or like would you ever do, I know you're not really interested in like special education, but like some of that can come through, like because I like mom does a lot of stuff like that, but you might have kids that are like the ones where they are like in the classroom usually, and then sometimes just get pulled out and stuff like that. Higher
functioning on the spectrum, stuff like that. I mean, like special populations, it's difficult because with like Title I schools and stuff, the last thing I want to do is be like that white guy coming in being like, your savior has arrived. I'm that cool teacher who's going to teach you how to work the democratic system type thing. So like, I definitely don't want to be that, but like at the same time, it's like those schools really do need well-trained teachers. And hopefully at the end of my program, I will be a well-trained teacher.
Yeah, I think there'd be a way to go in without, I mean, especially you obviously wouldn't have that attitude.
Yeah, I know, but like it's so difficult because like there's definitely an animosity between like the kids, because I have observed in like Title I schools and whatnot. I'm observing in one right now, and like there's definitely an animosity that's created between like the teacher and the student, just based on very trivial things like difference in skin color and whatnot.
Yeah, well, because I mean it isn't trivial to them.
Yeah, so. Exactly. But like the teacher's trying their best, and like the students, you know, their whole lives have been in the system that's completely against them. And I don't want to mistakenly aid that system. So like I'm wary to go into a Title I school just because like I'm worried myself that I won't be well like equipped as a white dude to like teach these populations of students.
Yeah.
And like understand their problems, but like also understand that I'll never be affected by those problems type thing.
I think it's the kind of thing where, yeah, I like get your point of view and I think that's really important. But on this other hand, it is like you're saying, like they need like well-trained teachers. So I think especially someone like you going in with that attitude of not wanting to do that, because there's also plenty of people who I feel like are just white savior assholes who are gonna go in and try to be like, oh, blah blah blah, I have to help you. So I think knowing that and like you're gonna, I don't know, I mean I get why you wouldn't want to, but maybe after like, you know, like if you've been teaching for a while, or you know, you can take like classes and stuff, or even like after you graduate, like just learning more about that. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, my attitude might change the more education courses I take, the more equipped. I'm taking a TESOL class next semester, which is like teaching students who speak English as a second language. So I might, you know, gain a different perspective, different attitude. And like, I'm not saying I wouldn't teach in a Title I school. I just think there's going to be some difficulties that right now I'm anxious about if I were to teach in there. But who knows? Maybe by the end of my program, I'll be all gung-ho and like that'll be the population I want to teach you. I think selfishly, some of it is like, man, I have all these great ideas for assignments. And a lot of teaching in Title I schools is based around, you know, making sure they have the equity of other students. So a lot of that is just building up skills, which like is something I want to do, but I'll have to like sacrifice a lot of like what I want to teach and stuff like that. So it's going to be difficult if I do choose to do that. But the thing is like, I don't know, no matter where I teach, I just, you know, want to have an impact on the students' lives, make sure they're at least know I care about them and whatnot.
Yeah. And I think you will.
Thanks.
Well, this is getting long, and I'm going to have to edit it down, but I think that was good.
Yeah,
and if you have any questions for Chris more about his teaching philosophy that he is developing and social science, let us know. And I hope you're doing good up in DC. I hope it's not too cold. And I know you did good on one of your exams, and I think you said another one was hard, so I hope you find the grade out and it's not too bad. I haven't had any midterms, which is nice. because I'm just working my internship, running this program basically. But yeah, so we have spring break. I'm going to work Monday through Wednesday and then take Thursday and Friday off. So I just get like a 2-day spring break. But Chris has off, so that's nice for you.
Yeah, I work 2 days. I don't know. I haven't had like a day off without any responsibility all semester, which is nice because I'm taking 5 classes right now. So it'll be nice to chill out, relax for a couple days. I'm sure I'll find something to stress myself out about, but we'll enjoy it.
Well, I hope you have a good rest of your weekend if I get this up in time. And if not, I hope you have a good week. And I'll talk to you soon. Love you.
I hope you have a good week. Bye.